Okay, so, when we think about floods, right, like what comes to mind, it's
Yeah.
usually like days and days of rain,
Yeah.
just like constant downpour.
Mm.
And then like eventually the rivers and the streets just can't handle it anymore.
Right, like it's a gradual thing.
Exactly, a gradual thing.
Yeah.
But Malaga, Spain, November 14th,
Oh, yeah.
this was anything but gradual.
Yeah, I saw some reports. I mean, people were describing it as like a wall of water.
Yeah, just this sudden deluge.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and you reached out, you wanted to know more about like the impact and what actually happened.
Definitely.
So we decided to do a deep dive into this flood.
Awesome.
So like starting off right off the bat, just how fast
Yeah.
everything happened.
It's pretty striking.
Yeah.
Meteorologists are calling this a Dana,
Okay, Dana.
which is, it's a common weather pattern in Spain.
Okay.
And it's basically like this sudden influx of cold air, and it clashes with the warm, moist air over the Mediterranean, and that leads to these like really intense bursts of rainfall.
So we're not talking like your typical, drizzle,
I don't know.
like fall showers.
This is like torrential downpour.
And
Come on.
I mean, the Guadalhorce River,
Yeah.
the one that runs right through Malaga, it overflowed and like thousands of people had to evacuate their homes.
I read over 3,000.
Yeah, it's just, I can't even imagine like having to leave everything behind that quickly.
And not knowing when you can go back.
Yeah, or what you're going back to.
Exactly. Yeah, and a lot of these people, they had to go to temporary shelters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like gyms, community centers.
Wow.
And it's just, reading those stories, it really highlights the human cost of this disaster.
Absolutely.
Like beyond just being displaced from your home, there's
Yeah.
like the long-term impact on people's lives and their livelihoods.
Yeah, and their mental well-being
Oh,
too.
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's a lot to process.
For sure.
And what's crazy to me is how these events, they just ripple outward.
Oh, yeah.
And they affect so many different parts of life.
For sure.
One thing that really stood out to me was reading about how the Virgin de la Victoria University Hospital was flooded.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's a major hospital.
Yeah, a major medical facility.
What kind of challenges do you think that created?
I mean, flooding in a hospital is a very specific problem. I mean, there were reports of damaged equipment,
Oh, no.
power supply disruptions,
No.
and just the logistics of getting all the patients somewhere safe,
Yeah.
especially those who were like in critical condition.
Yeah, that's got to be a nightmare.
A logistical nightmare.
I mean, how do you even begin to address that?
Right.
And then long term, like even after the waters recede.
Yeah, rebuilding that infrastructure,
Well,
getting everything back up and running
Yeah.
is a huge undertaking.
And, it just shows how interconnected everything is.
Oh,
Like we were reading about school closures, businesses shutting down,
yeah.
even a major tennis tournament that they had to postpone.
Wow.
I mean, it's just crazy.
It really exposes like the vulnerability
Yes.
of all these systems.
These kinds of events.
Absolutely.
And it makes you think about, are we prepared for this kind of thing?
Right, and we were talking about Dananas before.
Yeah.
Like they're a known weather pattern, but climate scientists are warning
Uh-oh.
that they're becoming more frequent and more intense because of climate change.
Really?
Yeah. And the Mediterranean region
Yeah.
is like a hot spot for these intensifying weather events.
Wow. So it's not even just about like cleaning up after this one flood.
No,
It's about looking ahead and thinking about, what if this happens again?
it will.
Yeah, and like how do we prepare for that?
Exactly.
So let's talk about the recovery efforts.
Okay.
What's being done to help Malaga rebuild?
So the Spanish government has pledged some pretty significant financial aid.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, and local authorities, they're focusing on like damage assessment,
Right.
immediate relief efforts.
Just trying to get people back into their homes as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Restore essential services like power and water,
Mhm.
and support businesses that, they took a hit.
Yeah, makes sense. And I was reading that there are some discussions about long-term like mitigation strategies as well,
Oh, yeah.
like trying to rebuild in a way that's more resilient
Yeah.
to future flooding.
Yeah, they're talking about better drainage systems,
Okay.
reinforcing riverbanks,
Mhm.
and maybe even like flood diversion channels.
Oh, wow.
Like they're really trying to adapt to this changing climate
Yeah.
and build infrastructure that can handle these like stronger, more frequent weather events.
And that's encouraging to hear at least.
It is.
So to kind of sum up everything we've talked about, we talked about how sudden this flood was, the human cost, the ripple effects it had, and all the efforts to rebuild and adapt for the future.
It's a lot.
What stands out to you? Like, what's the big takeaway from all this? You know, I think what we have to remember is that this flood in Malaga, it's not an isolated incident.
Right.
It's like a really clear example
Yeah.
of how climate change
Yeah.
is impacting our world.
Yeah.
And it's making these extreme weather events
Yeah.
more frequent and more severe. And I think the question now is like, how do we balance
Yeah.
preparing for these events while also addressing climate change,
Yeah.
you know, at its root?
It's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's an easy answer,
I don't think so.
but it's something we all have to think about.
Absolutely.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about,
Me too.
and I hope it's done the same for you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thanks for coming on,
Yeah.
and we'll see you next time.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.